Hi, welcome to Always the Bad Guys podcast. In this episode, me and Elliot are going to discuss why we've been on a 6-month hiatus, the rebrand of the podcast, and the new direction that we're going to be taking it in. Thanks for tuning in. So I suppose the first thing to pick up on is that, we've been away for nearly 6 months now, and to update everybody on why we were away and what we've sort of done over the time. We'll get to the nitty gritty of it. I suppose was that we last year in August we did quite a lot of jobs and quite big projects, and that was the last video that we put out, and last podcast that we did, and that was at the end of what we deemed a fairly successful event. However,
and year
to be fair, we were busy, and but the biggest hindrance from that was that we ended up having to fight quite hard to get paid for quite a lot of the work that we did, and ultimately we were left with a somewhere in the region of £90,000 worth of outstanding payments, which really hindered us going forward, and obviously we kept everybody updated as we could, and we've fought over the last 3-4 months to get it all sorted, but that's kind of where we ended up, wasn't it, towards the end of summer last year. And so we in some respects we chose not to do some podcasting and things because
we'd had a lot of plans, and we were implementing that, weren't we? We were doing regular podcasts. We had this plan of how it was going to be, what it was going to be. We were doing it, and then we'd got stumbled by this unexpected hurdle.
So like 90 Degrees, the security company that we've been running for the last 4 years. Like I say, it's been doing okay, doing well, ups and downs as most companies have, but it's been like the building block of what we do, isn't it? And when we were put in a position where we were owed this money, it really put a stop to anything extracurricular that we could do alongside it, because so much of the focus was on dealing with that, just the pressure, the stress of it all, having to work and do lots of behind the scenes work for that, to get that resolved. It took away our focus from doing this. This is part of the reason we've not done them. And then also my thought process on it as well was, I don't want to be the person that's and maybe this is a character thing, but I didn't want to be the person that was having this outstanding thing over our head where we owed money to people, or we had to pay wages and all that, which ultimately we got done because that's how that's how our ethos is. But I didn't want to be then sitting on a podcast and sort of trying to wax lyrical about how brilliant the industry is and whatever, when you're also dealing with this in the background, so
I mean, even if we referenced it, the optics of it could not look good, in that we're there chatting about stuff and people are going, where's our money, where's that thing, what's this guy, and then it was also making us rethink what we want to do going forward. So we thought we'd give ourselves time to rethink, regroup.
Well, to come up with a plan going forward of how we do things, and looking at the mistakes that we made last year, because obviously we did quite a lot of stuff well, but we obviously made some mistakes, and it gave us a bit of a kick up the arse to reevaluate what we're trying to do with 90 Degrees, with the podcast, with everything. So and also, as much as we've tried our best for the past 4 years to implement as much change and improvement to the industry, and not, I don't say the industry from the thing of that, we're industry leading experts and tell people how to do the job all the time, but more from the on the ground aspect of trying to improve things, from professionals on the ground, and so it kind of we have done our best to try and make those changes, and we've been big advocates of lots of things like, say, staff welfare and wages and all that kind of thing. But yeah, it kind of when to not get caught up in the minutiae of what went on, we were we expanded into providing our services to third parties, which ultimately was our downfall, because we were reliant on that third party then to provide the payment for everything. And whereas I think going forward, we did have this, we sort of had a rethink, and we were planned this next year, 2024, as a recouping year, because it's been hard from a financial perspective. So we're aiming towards doing our own thing where we don't have to rely on anybody else. So
I think what we're going to do is, like, in the next podcast, we're going to talk in more detail about our plan going forward.
Yeah, especially we've got a very specific plan project that we're working on, and I think we'll do a podcast on the next podcast. We'll do on that. But yeah, this is just to sort of like give everybody an update and like an insight into how things are and what we're going to do. Because my mindset on it this year is I say we will focus on doing on our things where we're not reliant on other people, other third party entities. We've got our own 90 Degrees has got work coming in. It's got work on the books. It's got things. We've refocused a lot of our attention on making sure our medical sector is healthy and doing well, and expanded there. And yeah, so from my perspective, unless we're dealing directly with a client, with no middleman interference, we're not interested. We'd rather we might not be as busy as we were. We might not be as like rushed off our feet, and it might not look as Gucci on Facebook and Instagram. But it means that when we say a job is there, the job is there, our terms are in place, and we're not having to fight tooth and nail to get paid for jobs that we've done, ultimately detrimenting us and our reputation, but also putting members of staff in jeopardy with their payments and stuff. So, and I'm sure there's there'll be loads of people out there that are like, oh well, if you have to have contingencies in place. Trust, we had contingencies in place. We had, but I don't think any small business can afford £90,000 to be outstanding for 6 months, and not feel the pressure of it. So
no.
And ultimately we are still here. We're still alive. We're still doing our thing. We're still, I think that was my cynical brain might be taking over, but I think that might have been the end goal of some of these third parties that we aligned ourselves with to ultimately for us to crumble under it and disappear and never do anything ever again. But that's not the way we operate, and we're gonna continue to do it. But it's just going to be our things, our contracts, our clients, our stuff, and move forward with it that way. And even if it's a slow build, it's still a build. Hopefully that sort of stuff's behind us, and we can start moving forward. Obviously, some of the things that we would have been doing or we planned to do this year aren't going ahead. We had a few festivals that we had lined up that were overseas, but again, the things change and things move on, and
it's like, things haven't gone the way we thought they were going to go, or the way we wanted them to go, but we always, we're never going to give up. We're not giving up type of people, so we've just used that time to regroup, think, plan B, C, other options. And I think ultimately it's hard, I always say this, it's hard to see when you're in amongst it. With hindsight, you go, everything happens for a reason. Yeah. And I'm excited about the things that we've got, planned.
Yeah, definitely. It's been, over the last couple of days, it's taken a few leaps and bounds, hasn't it? Because it was a bit initially it was a bit of a pipe dream, and now, a few phone calls later, a few emails later, and
it's happening.
It's happening, and and the people that we're dealing with it seem as enthusiastic as us about it. So, which is always nice.
And I want to say, initially, those who've listened to the podcast before have known that we've said this podcast is aimed at people within the security sort of industry, information advice and stuff for them. And like, we've essentially changed that now. In being honest, it's like, it's hard to go through the things that we've been through and be super cheerful and enthusiastic about wanting to do that. We part of us is like sort of very tired of the same bullshit that happens in the security industry over and over again. So what we've decided to do with the podcast is make it more of a broaden it. So it's not. We will talk about security related topics because we are in the industry and we have a lot of experiences from that. So of course we're going to reference it, but we're rebranding Always the Bad Guys to be aimed more at everyone who is interested in a certain sort of like, way of life, a certain mindset, way of being. And we always say that the things that the security work we've done have led us to do have been very character building. They've given you experiences, they've formed like the way we are, and we think that those kind of experiences can be very positive for people. So if we talk about them, reference them, we still want to get people on and have people that are well versed in these things in certain areas and spread that knowledge and that information to anyone.
We still the plan is to still speak to professionals outside of our industry, inside of our industry, providing that it has some benefit to everybody. And those things that we discussed previously, I think they still have impact for people who are in the industry, but also people outside the industry, and just things that we've come across over time that you want their questions answered to, and so hopefully we can still get that bit done. And but again, it's not necessarily aimed at people who work in our industry, but obviously with us being in that industry, there's the potential for people to listen in and get that knowledge, but there'll be things that are not necessarily security related. There'll be lots of travel stuff, lots of well-being stuff, so which is ultimately where Always the Bad Guys is sort of heading towards, rather than being a niche market to the security industry.
The world's one security related podcast. It's more aiming to be the world's one podcast. But the thing is, as well, we've always said that we on the jobs don't often do a lot of security work in the sense of most of it is, logistics, traveling. We've done all sorts of crazy stuff. So even on the jobs themselves, there's very little like what people would think of obvious security work done. So it's all of the other experiences that we've had on those jobs that actually are the bigger thing to us, really.
Make you an interesting human. But so that's it. Like I say, I mean, obviously there's a lot of security related like stuff that we do, and we've done a lot, like I say, and a lot of the security stuff that I've done, it's all planning and preparation and all the behind the scenes stuff that ultimately like creates that security plan to but when you actually arrive on an event like it's a lot of, from the management perspective, you end up say doing lots of logistics, HR, travel, and dealing with problems that you didn't think a security guard would be dealing with, helping with infrastructure problems and traffic problems, and I think the thing is like there's a good amount of people who work in our industry that are capable of doing that stuff, and they do it. They just jump in and get involved, and that's kind of the people we're aiming at, is like those people that are interested in just being capable people. Because that's what we find is that like a lot of the stuff that we get called upon by clients is not because we're super high level security operators. It's because we're capable, of turning your hand to all sorts of stuff, and when the generators break down, you go and fix them, and like so. But yeah, so I think that's the it's that thing of which does bleed well into the new project that we're looking at doing. Just as they say, like having capable people, capable humans that like, and that's kind of who hopefully will entice into listening to us yammer on for hours.
Yeah. I think it helps us as well though, because it's good to have like a niche and something for people to, understand what the podcast is about or what your thing is that you do. If it's too broad, but I think maybe just talking about or trying at times to keep it relevant or within the confines of security would limit us actually.
Yeah.
So with the things that we want to do going forward, they're completely different, and it's good that we can now do those. And I said, I think the better thing that defines us would be, we keep saying like a frame of mind.
Yeah.
A personality, a sort of a way. And there's loads of other people that I know in my life that do jobs that maybe are seen as soft compared to the way people see security as like a hard man's job. And then this other person has got this sort of like job that's seen as like a soft job.
Yeah.
But I know people who do those soft jobs that are way more capable
than
people that are in security industry. Yeah. So it's not the truth.
No.
And therefore I think like those people are the type that would be interested in what we're talking about. They've got a similar frame of mind.
Yeah.
They're not like the obvious stereotype of what it means to be, tough. I think being like resilient and tough is like a well-rounded thing. Like, it's not just the obvious things.
Yeah. That's it. And I said there's, it's the people that have got when a problem arises, you're not you either have to we've had to learn it or it's part of your psyche. But when a problem arises, you don't look over your shoulder to see who's going to fix it.
That's it.
And because I said that's never been the way we've operated. Is that like if there's a problem, and like unless you are trying to make a point where you go, this isn't my problem, because I'm sick of dealing with everyone else's problem. If it's if it's a major problem that needs sorting, then we've always been the people that turn our hand to solving that problem. So,
and it might be like a real simple problem in the sense of like it's paperwork based or something. Do you know what I mean? Or it might be I don't know. What I'm trying to say, and I might as well just say it like, I could try and dance around it to say it in a sort of non-obvious way, but there's like stereotypes of like, geezer problems. Yeah. We're not just talking about I can fix this with a drill and do this and do that and all those sort of we can and we have done them. Yeah. But sometimes it's the problems that logistical problems that don't require like strength or anything like that. It just requires like a frame of mind, like thinking, how am I going to overcome this and this? And I think you need certain qualities like resilience in the moment. You need to be able to keep calm, not panic, not flap, and that can be from the smallest of simple kind of problems. You can see people flap. For example, we've been on many travels where people have lost their bags. Through transport, flight, and so on. And it's like, right, what are we going to do about this? Right, we'll keep calm. Yeah. We've got to call this person, and then we have to go through to this one. Then we have to make sure we go and check this thing. It's just, we're not doing anything.
No, but we have had people that have lost bags on travels, and they look at us and go, you brought me here, this is your problem, fix it. And you go, well,
Or even, I'm there looking at them, I'm going like, if we weren't here to do this for you, you'd just sit there and go in your pants for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
They don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
You know, and that you don't need to go on some like, you know, tough security course.
No.
That's just like a everyday person's kind of thing.
Normal
you know?
life stuff. Yeah.
That's why I say it's more like mindset.
Yeah.
And I see that so many times within people where they just kind of like freeze.
Yeah.
And they don't really know what to do. That's what we want to try and help people with, I think, is in that like...
Yeah.
I think the only reason we're good at that kind of stuff is because of all of the experiences we've gone through in our lives.
Yeah. I mean...
Not just security-related
that's
things.
it. And I think that's the thing is, say, like, we've encountered all sorts of weird and wonderful problems that have got nothing to do with being security operators. But we end up working in places that are just not... you know, or maybe the fact that we've worked in that industry has given us a unique opportunity to encounter lots of problems.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, so, and you find that the hardest thing you've ever had to deal with is the hardest thing you have to deal with, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they don't have that mindset of like, oh, I can fix this problem, or I'm going to attempt to fix this problem. They just look around and go, who do I tell?
Yeah.
Know? So, but yeah, hopefully that's kind of gives, you know, that's the premise of what we're going to try and do. And like I say, we'll still get the similar people on, and it also opens us up to a wealth of other people that can come on that have zero interest in the security industry, but they're
hopefully,
useful, you know, be useful conversations and stuff. So,
well, we always like joked that what we would, you know, change 90 degrees or something into is like a company just called Problem Solvers.
Yeah.
So we didn't do security anymore. We go, what's your problem? We'll fix it.
Yeah.
Maybe thinking about it now, that's probably what this podcast is going to be like. Problem solve, you know, life.
Yeah.
You know, problem solving, like making you talking about things and giving people like thoughts and resources and information on things that just help get through the struggles of life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like make you more capable.
I wouldn't like to say that we don't have our own problems to deal with, and we don't always deal with them the best way. But like, we when it comes to like problems out in the world, like if I come across a car accident, like I know like the basics of helping somebody and dealing with something, and come across lots of stuff like that. So if someone crashed their car in front of me on the way home, like it wouldn't be the world-ending problem that some people have. I've been in that situation where you've gone and dealt with a patient or a casualty, and you know what to do and how to do it, and I think there's a lot of people out there that just have got no. I mean, you had a bicycle. Kid crashed his bike.
Yeah, I did. But what I was going to say was those that to me are kind of like the obvious things. If something like that happens, like I saw a guy fall off his bike, and obviously I've got some medical training and some experience doing that, so I dealt with it pretty well. The people around didn't.
Yeah.
I kind of more forgiving of that because that's like a sort of niche,
I suppose,
job. The things that it highlights, and I notice it most in my day-to-day life, are weird little things. I was telling you the story about the guy pinning up his trousers.
Yeah.
Those are the moments to me where I go, this is a mindset thing.
Yeah.
Because it's not a difficult thing. Treating someone medically and knowing what to do is quite difficult, right?
Yeah.
Pinning up your trousers with safety pins is not difficult.
No.
This guy fell apart in that moment.
Yeah.
I did it for him.
Yeah.
I told you about this. So I'm there pinning his trousers up because he doesn't know how to pin his trousers up.
Yeah.
And I'm there thinking, oh my God, the only reason...
23, 24 years of life and you fall apart because you use safety pins on your trousers.
This is it. And I'm thinking that is a mindset thing. The only reason I don't know how to do I'm trained to do it.
No.
It's just a common sense, right, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
Right, well, of course, you do this, you do that. It was like he was sort of scared and baffled and stumped by the loads of moments like that crop up in my life with people. And I go, what? Why? You know? And I'm still trying to figure it out. But I think the only reason is because I've gone through a bunch of experiences of difficult, harder challenges, that something like that seems to me to be really easy. And maybe because I've pushed myself, you know. And
gone put out your comfort zone.
That's it. Yeah. So maybe through this podcast, if we're talking about things and going, here's maybe some way you can challenge yourself, push yourself, better yourself.
Yeah.
Then when your trousers need pinning up, you're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, that's it. That's that thing that they always say, like the analogy of, like, you know, willingly putting yourself in through difficulty, like difficult things, makes everyday life easier, you know. So it is a mindset. And you say, I think a lot of people like comfort, don't they? And you kind of got to force yourself sometimes to do uncomfortable things. So then they say that when a small hurdle comes up, it's like, yeah, that's not a problem, that's fine.
I think it can be a challenge of any kind, you know. Really, it's like, if it's a challenge of like when you're saying like comfort zone, it's like, it's not that you've got to go and hike a mountain.
No,
it's that you can just go within the realm of what you do. What is a challenge for you? What's a push for you? You know, do that. That's something that will, you know, So anyway, we'll probably take a short break. And when we come back in part 2, we'll go into more depth. Cool. Okay.
Yep. Welcome back.
Yep.
So I think we kind of touched on what our plans are going forward, haven't we, and what we want to turn things into. We also mentioned the things that have happened over the last 6 months, and I think it's probably beneficial to sort of pick some of that apart a little bit and give a bit more detail rather than leaving it too
vague.
Too vague, too ambiguous. Where do we start? So essentially, we operated towards the end of the year. We operated that at We Are Festival, because, you know, everyone knows that's where we were. You know, we put out a podcast from there, and running alongside that, we had a couple of other things going on. We had quite a big deployment out over that week, so we got to the end of it, and we actually walked away from that job super happy, and, you know, on the ground it seemed everyone was super happy, and
if you listen to that podcast, then we were just like, you'll know what we were on about. We were saying, it went well, it was good, we were really happy. So.
And then as time went on, we do what we normally do, and we you know, you go through the process of putting your invoicing in and getting all the payments done and all that kind of stuff, all the behind the scenes stuff. And things just started to get really, really difficult. Again, we operated with alongside a third party, and we got sort of messed around a little bit on some stuff, and there was some, and again, it's learning for me as well. Like, you know, some of the operational changes that were made during the event itself, the responsibilities were not made clear to me at the time, or not necessarily the responsibility of the job, who was responsible for what deployment, and the overall people at the top were told one thing, and then when we put our invoice in, it didn't correlate with what they were told, and but anyway, to cut that long story short, we ended up going weeks beyond the payment terms to be paid. Made as much contact as I could to get things sorted, and I was getting passed from pillar to post on who was dealing with it, and eventually we got to the point where that payment was made, but I think nearly 3 months, let's say 2 months to be fair to people, 2 months late for that for that particular part of the payment, then the other part of the payment, which was where this discrepancy came in, was that we were asked, once the invoices went in, to split the invoices down and send one to one party and the other part to another party, and that other party then failed to pay that amount of money. So that was somewhere circa like 30 grand. And that went on for quite a long time. We got a legal advisor in, and they did a lot of work for us and to try and sort stuff out. And starting to, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, you know, when I was owing £90,000, I was, you know, sleepless nights and you know, but yeah, and what was frustrating was that, everyone went radio silent and wouldn't speak to us. And eventually, once a legal representative managed to contact them, the response back was almost, we don't know what you're talking about. You know, can you prove that you were there? Can you prove that you did this? Can you prove this, prove that? We have no recollection of what you're talking about. And that was real disheartening because, like I say, we did a podcast from from there, and, you know, and all right, you know, anyone can turn up and do a podcast on a festival ground, but, you know, we did have, you know, nearly 100 staff out that weekend. For
90 Degrees, you know, I filmed the video as well, you know, for our social media. So I've got like hours of footage of wandering around, of our staff in position doing the job. Yeah. So that'd be very hard to fake.
Yeah, and also like, I think people who are obviously like people who work in this industry, they understand how. I think most people do. I think there's a few people that don't, but most people understand that there's different levels of contractor on each event, and you know. You can be the lead contractor and have overall control of everything, and then you bring in people to assist you and fill the positions. And so you know, on one of the other jobs in question, that's what we did. We were subcontracted in, provided X amount of staff to a specific area of a festival, and part of that payment that was outstanding was to do with that event. And you know, can you provide the timesheets for these people? Can you know, the sign-in sheets, etc. And the frustrating thing about that was, because we were a subcontractor, they controlled the sign-in sheets. You know, we turned up to their tent, we signed in with them, they gave us their uniform, and we went off and did the job. So when they turn around and go, can you provide the time sheets and the sign-in sheets? You go, well, you guys already have them. You know, you control them. You didn't, you know, maybe I should have got suspicious when I didn't get copies of, you know, in previous deployments, we'd had copies of those sign-in sheets emailed over after the event, and that never turned up, and so then we have no copy of it, no recollection of it, no record, and then you sort of like messed around, and you know, but yeah, you know, it was hard work, man, and just trying to, like, you know, I mean, you know me, I'll deal with things how I need to deal with them, and to the point where I was at a point where, might as well be honest, man. I was at a point where I told them that if an element of this agreed money that we'd agreed on in a payment plan type situation wasn't paid by the end of the day, I would be at their office. And that seemed to stir up enough money to pay the first payment anyway. So, and then, they entered into a payment plan, which has been defaulted on a couple of times, I believe, but you know, we are slowly drawing it back in, but you know, it's the effort that it costs.
The thing is it's like, no matter what the reasons are, we've got our suspicions that there's some foul play, right? Even if we're wrong, and it was all an accident, it doesn't change the fact that that is a massive, like, that would end so many companies. And it's almost like, so in the industry you tend to have the big players, the £1 million, you know, it's not tons of them, but there's a bunch.
There's a couple,
you know,
that multi-million-pound
security, and let's just say ones within events. Because you know, there's the broader spectrum. There's like G4S doing all sorts of all sorts of stuff, and they, you know, government contracts and so on. But say within the realm of like events and festivals and that kind of stuff,
there's specialists in that.
There's a few players in there. Then you've got your sort of like middle companies where they're doing it properly. I would put us in there, not as in necessarily, you know, I'm sure there's another company that's got a bigger turnover or profit than us. But in the sense that we do everything properly, legally, by the book, you know, all of that kind of, like HMRC, all the paperwork and legality.
We've got the ability, like I say, you know, we're a step above some because we have the ability to provide the what's the best way of describing it? The ELT level standard of like going to do planning meetings. There's hundreds of companies out there that have never sat in a planning meeting.
Well, I mean more in like the overheads.
Oh, okay.
So
right.
say like, properly registered, properly, certified.
Yeah.
Then you have what we've always said, like the bedroom companies.
Yeah.
The guy who knows 20 guys. I've got 20 guys.
Running on a WhatsApp group.
Yeah. Let's put it into those three categories.
Yeah.
Well, the WhatsApp group guy, if he's in that situation, he doesn't pay his 20 guys. Yeah. And I've been in that situation, worked for those kind of guys.
Yeah, me too.
And those guys will basically turn around and go, sorry, mate, client didn't pay me. He loses no sleep over it.
Yeah.
So, and he's got very few overheads anyway, or no overheads, because it's just him.
He relies on the next level up to provide the uniform, the food, the transport, the camping, the this, that and the other.
Costs him nothing.
Yeah.
He's not registered, he's not certified and so on. The £1 million companies, well, it's not great for them, but they've got money in the bank to float the company, and they've got other contracts. They're big enough to sort of take the hit.
Yeah.
Whereas companies in the middle like us, like we're almost sort of like teetering on the edge in some ways.
Yeah.
When something like that happens, it's a fine line of So you're almost punished if you're trying to be better. You're trying to do it properly.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was a real like rough time over the winter period, and we obviously we focused on keeping things afloat, and then we ended up, and I wouldn't want to speculate right now, but I think that is completely paid now. I think.
Okay.
Just waiting on the collection agency to deal with the last bit. But I think, so we're talking what now? We March. So and this was a problem from, let's say the job was August.
So it's September-y.
So if we say the end of September after these 30 days, so what's that? That's 6 months. So, and we've got our speculations on what was the problem was and what happened, and we got some fairly what's the word? Choice WhatsApp messages sent to us at one point. And, we did a really good job, but I think we might have upset the wrong people at the wrong time or whatever. But I think there was some. Even if it wasn't overt, there was a thing of like, if we can drag this out long enough, we will disappear. So, so that was a big hit for us. And to be fair, I got all the time in the world for everyone who worked for us. I'd say like everybody was solid for it. Nobody got too upset. Nobody. We tried our best to keep money going through and getting people paid, and there was, we had people come to us and say, "Don't worry about paying me yet. Don't worry about paying me yet," which I massively appreciate. Which is the I suppose in some respects that kind of shows that we are trustworthy. We are people do like working for us, and when someone offers to wait 2 months, 3 months to get paid because they can see it's, there's a problem. That's that's always the nicer side of things. Nobody lost their mind with us, and because we were honest as well. That's the other thing is we were communicative. We explained the situation. I sat and did a video for everybody and explained. And I think that we were genuine, and the moment I could pay people, they got paid.
But I think the feeling like it left us with is that it's like it is very demoralising, isn't it? Disheartening. It's like you try so hard to make this thing work.
Yeah.
And at the hands of other people and outside influences, like we can live with it if it's our own fuck up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. If we fuck it up, we'll say, you know me and most people know, if I fuck something up, I will hold my hands up and go, I fucked that up.
it's very annoying, you know, and it happens many a time, and there's certain security industry related specifics that keep cropping up.
Yeah.
That after a while they just sort of like chip away at you, and it makes you feel like, why do we even bother?
Yeah.
And it makes us go like, why are we, you know, why should we bother trying to do, you know, improve security industry, try and make it better? Like, if it's not going to be wanted, received well, or, you know, and, you know, being honest, like, there are times where there are things like with staff, isn't it? You know, it's like we've tried, like I say, there are staff that like get it and support it, and, you know, they understand. But then there's times where, you know, and I suppose it's a difficult thing to explain the ins and outs and the intricacies of some of these things to members of staff. And I look back on when I first started, I was none the wiser, and I complained about the same things because of naivety. So I give them that leeway, you know, like, they're not to know, but it doesn't change the fact at the end of the day, those things still do chip away at you. And they make you go, why are we bothering? You know? So, you know, it made us do a lot of like thinking and reflecting, like, what do we do going forward? I think we found like a happy medium. Now, you know, like I say, it all happens for a reason. But that's the truth of what it made us.
Of course,
do, you know, what it happened, you know. So,
and then obviously the other big sort of hit for us was that we didn't retain a contract that we've had, a contract that I've been involved with for nearly 10 years now, and we'd done it as 90 Degrees for 2 years, and we're hoping this would be the third year we'd done it, but, you know, the powers that be decided not to, so and yeah, we you know, it's a bit disappointing, and it's, you know, it's a bit of a knock to us, but, you know, there's elements to that we're still a bit in the dark about in some respects. You know, the last deployment we had there, we you know, from my perspective, like, seemed like we'd sussed out how to get things done. There was a lot of like, there was lots of improvements to make, but the problem we found always was that, you know, and again, if we fuck up, I'll hold my hands up and say we fucked up. And there was elements that, you know, that weren't perfect, but, you know, you kind of get a bit disheartened because you're like, well, we delivered on that, and then you kind of don't really get the feedback you get it's the negative bits are always the thing that people cling on to, and you're like, oh, okay.
Well, it's made us view that whole thing in a new light. And we kind of, you know, we look back on it and assess it now, and that's where the frustrations come in the effect, again, that it has on, we were like, what are we doing? What are we going to do? Is because we're not going to go into all of like naming names and the minutiae and bitch about, you know, the whole thing here now, because it's not appropriate and right. But, you know, there are aspects of that are frustrating for us, and, you know, it can't help but feel disheartened and annoyed, and all the negative emotions. And again, that knock-on effect of that is that you then go like, why are we even bothering? You know, so it kind of, now it has made us reassess, and the reason we're saying all this is to explain why we're doing this new direction. It's not a massive U-turn.
No.
But it's not where we were 6 months ago. What we're doing now and planning and the way we're going to run things is not as what we had in mind back then. So we sort of thought we'd owe the listeners like a explanation of why things are going to change. You know.
So our focus is not necessarily going to be like. We still operate in the security industry. We've still got 90 Degrees is still functioning and doing its thing, and, you know, it will will continue and it will get bigger and better. But I think the focus from doing it as using it as a platform, we just, really what we've got to do is let 90 Degrees do its thing, and then this becomes its own thing, and we can reference it and reference back. But yeah, we've got a lot of other plans that to throw into this mix as well, which they complement each other, but they will ultimately be standalone. And yeah, the plan is not necessarily to. The plan is not necessarily to focus on improving in an industry that doesn't
want to be improved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's not fair. There are some really good operators in the security industry, some real good professionals, but I think that might be the issue, is that there's the professionals in the industry, the people that use the people that you would, what's the best way of putting it? The people that are professionals, they get a little bit swallowed up, I think, sometimes by the industry, because they, ultimately the industry, it's a numbers game a lot of the time, especially the events industry. Like, there's you need to put X amount of bodies in X amount of positions, and unfortunately the way the industry is and has become is it doesn't actually matter what the standard of person in that position is. So you can be a high level operator and be stuck in a position, as long as you've got a badge on your arm, they don't care.
Well, it's like, say, we wanted to improve the industry, and it's like, do we want to be the people now? Because whoever does that, accepts that challenge, is in for a rough ride.
Yeah.
And do we want to be those people?
Yeah, that's it.
And even we could do that rough ride and it may not work.
Well, we tried it and then we got screwed over, didn't we? So,
that's it. So I'm kind of thinking it won't work.
Yeah.
That's part we're like, I don't think it will work. And do we want to be the people that risk our whole lives trying to save?
That's it. We're a mid-level company that, like, we do a really good job when we turn up and do the job, and everyone that we try our best to not put the wrong people in the wrong places, but like, yeah.
Are we trying to change a beast that doesn't want to be changed?
Yeah.
Because I think one of the conversations we had was that it's like, we ruffled some feathers.
Yeah.
Especially on that last job.
Yeah.
We ruffled feathers because we want things to be done properly.
Yeah.
And you've got to piss some people off in the process of doing that.
Yeah.
And then our analysis looking on it was like, maybe the reason we see all of this poor quality in areas is because most people's attitude is like, keep my head down, do the bare minimum, and not get noticed.
Yeah.
And, it's like they just, if I can get away with doing it, and getting, if we were a company that had done that, we probably would have not had.
Well, that's it.
Do you know what I mean?
If we, if we hadn't have called out certain problems and certain issues and certain standards, and just kept quiet about it and taking the paycheck, and
we'd probably still be there now.
We'd still be, it'd be fine. But it's not really within our nature to do that as a problem.
It would frustrate us so much. We'd probably be able to do it for like 6 months, a year, and then eventually.
What was the phrase that was used? That we don't play well with others was the phrase.
That's it.
And it's not that we don't play well with others; it's that we have a standard that we want to set, and a standard that we hold ourselves to. Well, it's very frustrating when other things are going on and not to that standard.
Yeah, you're not going to play well with others if. Our excuse though is like, but we're trying to do better.
Yeah.
So if I've got to tell you something, whether it's an individual on any level, if I had to do you want a yes ma'am? Or do you want someone who's going to tell you the horrible thing?
Yeah.
But you respect them because they will always tell you the truth, whether they make. That's our relationship.
Yeah.
There's times where like you've told it to me blunt, and it doesn't make me happy.
Yeah.
But you're like, it's for the best for you, and that's why I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And vice versa. It's like, we wouldn't want like, I don't want to offend Emmett, so I'll let this bad thing carry on. We would rather just say it as it is.
That's it.
A lot of other people don't like that, and I don't think the industry likes that. So we were the the feather rufflers.
Yeah,
in our interactions we had.
Yeah,
So.
and it ultimately, it upset people, and I say it's only because we've kind of, and we're not like, at no point in the world, do we ever turn around and go, we are the best thing since sliced bread.
No.
But like, just from the bit of like having basic, like the basic ability to like put staff out into position, check them, do the job, the basics that need, like the entry level stuff that you would expect from someone who works in security and someone who manages in security, and everyone. It's this thing of like, when I don't expect everyone to be like a special forces guy.
No, and we make mistakes. We get things wrong.
God, yeah.
Like but you can't help. But if you're calling an unintended side effect is if you call someone out on something, they're always going to accuse you and assume that, you think you're the best.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're trying to, okay, because I fear that you may criticise me thinking I'm the best. I won't say anything.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take that risk and say...
That's it. We know we're not perfect. We knew we weren't perfect, but we in a lot of senses, we just had a standard that we wanted to work to.
If I see something that's wrong and I mention it, doesn't mean I think I'm perfect. I'm just trying to correct that thing.
That's it. Yeah.
It's...
and then, when you sort of see that level of that standard being allowed to go ahead, and the people who are supposed to be in charge of that standard kind of go, well, don't worry about it. Let's move on. Kind of be like, it's you kind of got to like lead by example sometimes, and and you say like it was telling when we had queues at our staff welfare area. From staff from other companies because they had no welfare. So it does frustrate you, but it's one of those things, isn't it? So, but
so I think ultimately what that's kind of led to is like we're saying we're not out of the security industry, completely and like binning it off. It's just that when it comes to the extracurricular, like aspects of it we're all in, we're going to it's like we're like that energy is probably better used elsewhere,
or at least on areas that we can control. Like our standard will still be on the jobs that we have.
I mean like with the podcast.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Like I've not got the, if I'm honest, like the enthusiasm or passion, or I'm pissed off in the sense of like I don't really want to go, here's a podcast to try and help the security industry, because the security industry doesn't want it.
Yeah.
A vast majority of the people working in the industry don't seem to appreciate it. Yeah. So I'm kind of like, fine, I'll go and do something else.
Yeah. No, I think the thing is, let's say it's like we want to focus. We want to focus on the people that want to be better.
Whether they're in the security
or not.
Yeah, that's it.
And that was it. That's kind of because you say you get to a point where you go, is it I'd look, if someone came to me and said, Emmett, you are responsible for improving the industry and setting a standard of some description, but you don't have to use your finances and worry about your financial side of things to do that. Here's a magic wand and do it. Cool, perfect. But I think especially from my side of things, our energy is best focused on improving us internally, improving 90 Degrees, having 90 Degrees' jobs run smoothly, slickly, to a high standard. Because I don't want to turn up to an event and someone throw a high-vis vest at me and go and do this, and then I walk around benefiting somebody else with my skill set and my ability, and then ultimately getting frustrated because it's not my plaything, it's not my toy to fix. And also, if I'm being really callous about it, I don't want my guys, my team, my staff being throwing high-vis vests of somebody else. doing an amazing job, and then the client coming along going, oh, you guys did an amazing job, let's bring X company back because you're working for them.
Yeah.
So I ain't got time for that, because that was one of the arguments I had, you know, in regards to the feather ruffling, was that, like, you know, ultimately we, at least one of those jobs that week, our team were head and shoulders above other people, and all it did, because they were branded up in their uniform and doing their job, it made them look slick, and then they didn't even pay us for it.
Yeah.
So,
I know.
But yeah, so. But yeah, it's probably about an hour, isn't it? Do about an hour?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So we'll wrap that up.
We'll wrap it up, and then on the next one we'll go into the new project. Something slightly different. That
I think we'll go into the whole direction we're going in, the structure, everything that we've, you know, the way we've planned it out, and who knows how that'll play out. I never want to say our plan's a plan anymore, but we've got to start somewhere.
It sounds like it'll be an adventure anyway.
That's it, yeah.
So,
Cool. All right.